Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition. Today we're going to talk about why letting go doesn't work. Now everyone knows those are the worst words you ever want to hear when you're upset about something. If I had $1 for every time I heard that, when I was really inside of that space, and someone tells you to let something go, it triggers you even more. Your whole body will go into hyperdrive. Like, what do you mean, let it go? What do you mean? What are you talking about? One, you know you're not ready to. You've got too much emotion around it. You've got too many things tied up around it. When you have a lot of stuff tied up around it, letting it go doesn't really work. Because we haven't resolved it. It doesn't matter what it brought up. Judgment, shame, blame, guilt, anger. We created those situations to trigger those emotions. So if we don't resolve that, then we're going to just creating the same thing again. Our body says no, no, no for a couple reasons. When we hear the word let it go, our body triggers because we feel like we have to give something up. And also because we know it's not going to work. We know it's not the answer. So we have our body kind of saying no, 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 no. But the human perceives that, and the ego perceives that as saying no, 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 don't resolve it. Keep going with the fantasy of it. Keep hoping and holding on. So we have to really look at both sides of it. We don't want to hope and hold on. We do want to resolve it and move on. But we can't just let something go without resolving it. Because in the third dimensional level of consciousness, that's just a sign to our universe to bring it back around again because we didn't resolve it. All those emotions we were trying to clear from our body, it didn't finish. That thing is still a trigger point for us. The situation is still a trigger point for us. The person can be a trigger point for us. It doesn't really matter what it was or what it is. But the minute we just say, oh, I'm just going to let it go, and humans will say that, I'm just going to let it go. So in a third dimensional level of consciousness, when you say that, it basically means I don't want to deal with it. So yeah, I'm going to let it go. But you really can't because you haven't resolved it. So it's just going to come around again. You're going to get it again, maybe through a different form. Normally for me, it was through a different form. Occasionally it would come back to the same form, but normally for me, it was through somebody different. But I relive it again. It would trigger all over again because I never really sat with it and resolved it. Let all those feelings come up. That's why you see a lot of people say letting go is a process. And it is a process. But letting go itself is not a process. Letting go is just like, okay, forget about it. Processing is the process. Those things left and triggered us for a reason because we couldn't carry them to our next phase of where we're going. And not only could we not carry that situation in the current energetics it was in, we can't carry those emotions it triggered because it's holding us back. And if it holds us back, we can't move on. Now, when I say you have to resolve it, you have to get to the point where you have no emotion around it anymore. And that's not overnight. I think it does get easier the more you expand your consciousness because you can see all the reasons it was there. So it gets easier to also process it knowing it wasn't aligned and it wasn't going to work. Now, when you're operating from your ego state, you eventually look back at everything and understand why. You can just see it quicker when you're in higher dimensional states of consciousness. You can just see the reasons for it a little bit quicker. So I do feel like it's a little bit easier to resolve it, but it depends on how deep it is. Now, you have to look at the level of consciousness you're coming from when you say, I'm going to let it go. Because when you're operating from higher states of consciousness, you can say, I'm going to let it go. But you know what that means. That means I don't have the energy, and that energy can mean money, because money's energy, time, because time is energy, resources, because that's energy. I don't have any of that stuff to deal with this. I just don't have any of that stuff to deal with this right now. I can't resolve it. And I know I can't because it's not where I am energetically right now. So I'm going to let this go, but I know it's going to come back again. I can say I'm going to let it go, but I know that means to be revisited. again because I didn't resolve it. It doesn't matter what it is. You can say, okay, I don't have the money. If it's money that would align the situation and close the reality, I don't have the money to do that right now. So I don't have the money to do that. I'm going to let it go for now. Now it's going to come back around later. And then we're going to get triggered every time it comes back around until all that energy is done. It doesn't trigger you anymore. You've worked through all the programming. You've gone deeper and deeper and deeper into whatever it represented for you, and it's gone. Then you don't even have to say, I let it go. That's a very human thing to say in a sense. It means different things to me in different levels of consciousness. But you have to be aware of what you're saying when you say that. When a human says that, when you're operating from an ego level of consciousness, that's what's running the show for you, and you say that, you don't realize that means, oh, it's going to come back around again because I'm not done. That's what you're saying. I'm not done. Bring it back later. I'm not done. We're going to do this again. Look at when you're saying it from, what level of consciousness you're at, not as a judgment of where you are, just where you're at that moment, because we ebb and flow through all of it. Where am I right now? Can I deal with this right now? Or is it better to let it go? Knowing it's going to come back, knowing I have to deal with this and resolve it at some point for me to go to my next phase. But I can't do it right now. I just know that that's not where I am. I'm not at that space right now. Don't judge it. Just be aware of what you're saying when you say it. Because it's a very overused term that doesn't really move a reality forward in a sense, because you have to resolve it, and you'll know when it's resolved. You won't have any emotion around it at all. You'll understand why it was there, the opportunities it presented, how you called it in frequency-wise. You know, and I would say in a lot of my videos, I would say, okay, if it was supposed to work out, it wasn't aligned, right? I was actually going to do a video like that, but I think I'm just going to combine the two really fast. It was aligned in the level of consciousness you were at, and it was aligned with the frequency you were giving off. It was aligned. That's why I came in, because it was aligned. It wasn't aligned anymore. We have to process what that means for us. Process those emotions. Let those emotions come out. Cry it out. Go outside. It's a process. It is a process. You have to process it all. And it might take 3 weeks. It might take 3 years. Normally, it doesn't take that long. The more you expand out, normally you can do it faster. Some of my deeper rooted programs, some of my deeper ones about survival and anything wrapped up in money or relationships, they tended to take a little bit longer for me because they were deep rooted programs. I kept going deeper into it. So for me, it was longer to process. Once you process them, you don't call them forth anymore because they don't trigger anything. What's the first thing we learned? When we really start expanding out, if it doesn't trigger us, it serves no purpose. If it doesn't trigger happiness, some kind of emotion, whether it be whatever it is, some of the things you would say are the guilt, the shame, the blame, the anger, the jealousy, it doesn't trigger those. It doesn't trigger happiness, joy, and peace either. There's no reason to have the experience. It serves no purpose in clearing our body of emotions or activating different ones we want to experience. It's irrelevant. We don't call it forth anymore. Look at where you are with something. And don't feed into if someone says, okay, let it go. Oh, you're right. I'll just let it go. Be true to yourself of what you can do in that moment. It'll change in every moment. Be true to yourself of where you are. Can I really let it go? Or am I just going to basically say, okay, for now, okay. But I know I got to deal with it at some point. It just might not be this moment. And that's 100% okay. Don't judge you can't deal with it right now. Because if you don't have the time, the resources, if it would take money to close it out, the money to close it out, then you know it's not really the right time to close it out because you need to go deeper and process more with it. It's a deeper clearing. That might take more time. So, don't worry about it. Just know what you're saying when you say it. Be conscious of where you are. And keep practicing the art of intuition.